Good afternoon, church. Today is Wednesday, December 21st, which means we are just a few days away from Christmas, which is the birth of our Savior. And that got me to thinking about something about the day of Jesus' birth. And what it made me start thinking about were the people that got to see Jesus as a baby. Now, I don't mean those that, as Mary and Joseph were walking around with a baby on their shoulder and just happened to walk by and see a little baby there. I mean the ones that really got to see Jesus. They got to see Jesus for who he was. And there were three groups of people that got to see him. Now, if you are familiar with the Christmas story, you're probably thinking, well, Marty, I know at least two of them. Who's the third one? Well, if you don't know the Christmas story, well, then I'm going to tell you all three of them. Now, the first one that we're introduced to are the shepherds. The shepherds were the lowliest of people in Israel. I mean, they were the bottom rung of all of the blue-collar people in Israel. They were hired servants who watched sheep all day long. And if you'll remember that the day of Jesus' birth, as they're out in the fields at night, the angels appear and tell them that they have great news for all people, that a Savior has been born and that they needed to go and see him. So you might be familiar with the shepherds, the lowly and the poor. The second group, you may even be familiar with them. This is the wise men. These are those that are powerful and influential and wealthy from the east. These were men that had been searching the stars for signs, and they saw one and they put it together through all of the literature that they studied and thought to themselves, there is now a king in Israel. And so they took that journey from somewhere in the east to Israel to see Jesus. So you're probably familiar with the shepherds and you're familiar with the wise men, but there is another group of people that got to see him. You see, after Jesus was born on the 8th day, he was taken to the temple like he was supposed to be, and there he met two people there. He met Simeon and Anna. Now, Simeon and Anna are religious people. You know, I don't even think it's fair to just call them religious. These were righteous and religious people. They had dedicated their life to God. And they had dedicated their life to seeing the Messiah. And then here he was one day showing up at the temple as a little baby, and they both got to see him. And Simeon looked at him and said, man, this is going to be the king of the world, and there's going to be a lot of people that's going to have to pay a terrible price for rejecting him. And Anna just looked at him and thought, now I can die because I have seen the Savior. Three groups of people got to see Jesus for who he really is. You have the lowly shepherds, you have the wealthy and influential wise men, and then you have the righteous who are just waiting to see Jesus. Now here's what's interesting. You know, we're just a few days away from Christmas. And if you're like me, you might be a little bit stressed about it. You're starting to think about all the presents that you bought or all the presents you haven't bought. Maybe you've looked at your bank account and gotten a little scared of all the money that you've spent. Maybe you've got family coming in or family that's leaving. And all of this is just adding to everything else. And you just want to have a different type of Christmas this year. You don't want all of the stress and you don't want all of that. And you're thinking, how can I have a Christmas the way I'm supposed to? Well, I think what we need to do is we need to look at those three groups of people. The lowly, poor, not thought of very highly shepherds that if they walked by you, you would probably walk on the other side of the road so you wouldn't have to be close to them or have to smell them. Or you have the wise men, these wealthy and influential and wise people. They may be the ones that walk on the other side of the road to avoid you. And then you have the righteous, the ones that you just around and you know there's something different about them. And we ask the question, why did these three different sets of people get to see Jesus? Why the poor? Why the wealthy? Why the righteous? And I think the answer is very simple. They had a heart to see Jesus. It wasn't about where they were in life. It wasn't about being young or old, wealthy or poor. It wasn't even about how much they knew. They just simply wanted to see the Savior. You see, the wise men came searching for him. The righteous had spent their life waiting for him. The shepherds, they were just out in the fields. They had nothing to think about. And then the angel showed up. And all three of them had the right heart. They said, I want to go and see him. And so they put everything down. You see, the shepherds, they left their sheep to go and see him. The wise men, they left their own home country to go and see him. The righteous, they had left everything that this world had to give them so that they could be waiting for the Messiah. Their hearts were geared to see Jesus. Is your heart geared to see Jesus this Christmas? Is your heart more focused on all of the trappings around us? Or is your heart focused on Jesus? That I want to see him. When I look at a nativity, I just don't see these things there. I see a baby that has come from heaven for the sole purpose of bringing me salvation. And so we put these other things away and we let our hearts get into its right place. We pick up the Bible and we start reading Matthew and we start reading Luke and we read about the birth of Jesus. And we put all of the sins that we've been having in our lives, we lay them down at the foot of the cross and ask Jesus to go ahead and forgive us, that we don't want to do them anymore. We turn off the negative stuff on TV. Maybe we watch a good Christmas show. We put on some good Christmas music. And we let our hearts and our minds get focused on what is important. And what is important is not all of the other things. The only thing that really is important is Jesus. Is your heart ready to see him? As we get closer and closer to Christmas, are you ready to celebrate the birth of Jesus? And I hope that you are, because this weekend coming up, we have some wonderful opportunities to do just that. This evening, which is Wednesday, we're going to go out caroling. There's going to be people in our community that we want to go out and sing to and bring some Christmas joy to them. And then on Saturday, we have our Christmas Eve candlelight communion service. This is one of my favorite services of all the year. I look forward to it, where we just come in here and we just think about the birth of Jesus. We hear some great songs. We hear a small message. We get to take communion, and then we get to have the candles lit as we just remember that. And then this Sunday, we get to have a Christmas service. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, well, it's Christmas. Should I stay at home? And the answer to that is simply, no, you shouldn't. You should be in God's house with God's people celebrating the birth of Christ. And we hope that you'll be here, that you'll be able to move all of those other things away and get your heart right and get your mind ready and be ready to celebrate Jesus, just like the shepherds, just like the wise men, and just like the righteous. I love you guys, and I hope you're ready to have a great and Merry Christmas.